He said, "Do you really think this is the day that Jesus died?" I said, "No. That was 2,000 years ago. Jesus has been out of the grave for a long time." And we celebrate. And he said, "Hey, there you are. This is the guy I'm talking about. Good to see you today. I'm glad you're with us today." And he said, I said, "Well, I mean, honestly, it should be after Passover, which is in a month." I said, "But the important thing is that we remember that Jesus lives again. No matter what the calendars say." Today the calendar says it's Easter and we remember. But you know, every week we remember. And here's what I want to do. I want to do something real quick. I want to give a special invitation, right? Like some of you may feel excluded in just a moment. But we are beginning a brand new series called Together. And I get it. It's got a wedding ring, engagement ring on it. You're going, it's probably not for me. But I want you to check something out. Like I want you to take a look at the screen. Look all around the screen. And if you happen to find yourself on the screen, this series is for you. You found yourself yet? 12 o'clock. His wife is good answer. There's this thing, right? We are going to talk about relationships, 6 conversations for a lifetime of connection. But for some of you going, "Well, I'm not married, this isn't for me." Or some of you going, "I've been married too long, this isn't for me." No, it's for all of us. And here's why. Do you know the picture that God uses most to describe his relationship with the people he loves? Marriage. Marriage. So within these conversations, really is connection with the Lord too. I would love for you to come back. You should have gotten one of these on your way in. It lays out the conversations we're going to have. And then at the end of May, as we wrap it up, we're going to have some fun together with some panel discussions and some Q&A to take any questions that you may have about the series. But for where we are today, it is Easter Sunday, and I want to give you something. I want to give you the secrets of a productive life. There are so many things we could talk about. For the last few weeks, we've been talking about time here at Cornerstone. And time is pretty significant, including where we fall in this worship calendar, right? Like celebrating Easter or Passover or all these different things. It has a significant moment because it's all about time. And God has always shown up on time, never early, never late, always according to his will and good purpose on time. Paul writes in Galatians, at just the right time. Why didn't Jesus live and die today? We have no problem accusing innocent people today. We have a harder time putting people to death for their crimes today. The Romans had no problem with that. And there was Jesus, an innocent man at just the right time. And when God says it through his servant Paul, at just the right time, says that Jesus was born of a virgin so that we could become God's adopted children. When God shows up on time, he always has a purpose to it. In just a little while, we're going to invite you to respond. You should have had one of these in a seat near you. There's an invitation to talk to us. You can talk to me anytime. It may be right in the middle of the sermon. That's okay. There's 3 things we'd invite you to respond to. One of those is if you would like to meet us, let us know that you would like to know more. You could text "meet us" to the number that's on the page. We'll get you set up. Cornerstone Connect's going to be a blast this Wednesday. Love to have you part of that. You have a prayer request, anyone. We pray as a staff on Tuesdays for every single prayer that comes through. We would love to be praying for you. But you may be here today in a unique space of saying yes to Jesus for the very first time. And if today is the day for you, if that time is there, we invite you to text Jesus to that same number. We have some resources we would like to share with you to help you engage your faith journey. But what does that have to do with a productive life. We start talking about a productive life. Like, what is a productive life? Is it acceptance when everybody likes you? Sally Fields at the Oscars, you like me, you really, really like me. Is that success? Is it promotion? Is it feeling purposeful, fulfilled? Is it being rich? Is it having achievement? Like what is, for you, the end goal of a productive life? I was talking to one of my children yesterday. We were having, unfortunately, one of those kinds of conversations. A little father-daughter talk. And I said, what would you like our relationship to look like? And she says, I just want to be happy. I said, me too. Now, what does happiness look like? And she says, I don't know. So when we talk about a life that is meaningful, successful, productive, what do we mean? When we think about like how most people would think about productive life, like your definition, whatever and however you define it, is forever linked to who or what most defines you. If you are most defined by the number of social media followers that you have, oh, I made this video and it went viral, I'm so famous, what do you do next? Because your TikTok is 15 seconds. Then what? You go viral once and now you have the pressure to do it again. You watch all these people who make it on social media and become social media famous, like within 4 or 5 posts, and you start to watch the comments, their next videos are all defending against all the negative comments that people have made. Within 5 posts, they've gone from being the most viral, beloved thing to being like, what in the world? And they spend more time fighting the comments than they do being who God made them to be in that space. Is it your job? Is it your family? If your family defines you, what do you do when one of your family members fails, disappoints you, breaks your expectations? I have 6 children. I love every single one of them. And at different levels, every single one of them has disappointed me. And I've disappointed them. And if that was our sole definition, what are we going to do? How do we live in relationship if that's the space, if that's what most defines us? So your definition of the productive life is forever linked to who or what most defines you. The most common definition of a productive life that we find through all the dictionaries comes out like this: the measurement of a person's progress towards their significant results. What's a significant result? Like, do you track? Like, the world is all about production. Like, we live in a Western world. There are days, like one time I was on a mission trip and we went to this village. It's called Barranca Pobre. It's in central Mexico, in the mountains, the Cornerstone de Mexico, Talapa. And in this village, I was the first white person they had ever seen. So now they think all white people are 6'6" and massive. They loved basketball. I don't know how in the world, in the middle of this village, in the top of these mountains, they found basketball, but their goals were this tall. I owned them. El Gigante, El Jefe, the chief, the giant, And there I am. And they called it the Valley of the Poor is the direct English translation. Barranca Pobre. They had one chicken coop for the entire village. And once a month, the entire village would share a chicken. They had one electric breaker that ran to every house in the village, and sometimes they had electricity. And if people had to go down the mountain to find work or whatever, they had one taxi. It was a pickup truck with a giant bar running down the middle that everybody held on to as they crammed through and wandered down the mountains. Life was so simple. And there were successful people there. Happy people there. It was beautiful to watch. So we struggle with these definitions, right? Like what do we mean by productive life? Who's going to define that? What anchors that? And then really, what does it mean to find significant results. What are the significant results? Is it money? Is it just lots and lots of money? Is it fame and followers and all the? Is it having lots of sex? Like I heard a phrase the other day. What's your body count? And I was like, I thought they were talking about Miami Vice for a minute. Like when I grew up, a body count was like not a, you know. And now it's not. It's still not good. Does that make someone successful? Is it winning at your job and getting promotions? Like, what is the significant result? And what happens if you actually got it? You know that Elon Musk has enough money to give every person on the planet $1 billion. And he would still have $240 billion. Every human on the planet could get $1 billion. Do you know what happens when every human on the planet has $1 billion? We're all broke. Because $1 billion becomes nothing at that point. Ever thought about that? Everybody gets on Elon. Why doesn't he just give us all $1 billion? It would be so disastrous for the planet. Because we would go for instant riches and instantly be in poverty. We would all be broke, not because we spent it all, but because our money would be worthless. What if you had it all and you still were empty? You know, there's a guy in the Bible that ran into this problem. He says, I denied myself nothing, anything my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all of my work, and this was the reward for my toil. He's setting you up here. Now, if you read the beginning of Ecclesiastes, from chapter 1 through chapter 2, verse 9, he's telling you, I had entertainers galore. I had servants who took care of every need. I had women. I had money. I had fame, and I had it in excess. You drank the cheap stuff, I just had Dom. That's all I had. And this is what I gained. When I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, like chasing after the wind. The most successful king in ancient history, the wealthiest, the wisest, had the most territory, the most servants, the most everything. He says it was chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. The secrets of a productive life can't be found in wasting away. And we can chase after all kinds of things. We can chase after our parents' love and maybe never be loved by our parents. We could chase after romance and maybe end up alone. We could chase after a healthy retirement and everything gets spent on a medical emergency. Like, what in the world am I chasing after? What if you chased and chased and chased and chased and chased and chased and chased your whole life and it ended up dust? What do you do? So how do we find life? Because if you're going to have a productive life, you got to have life. The productive life just isn't about productivity. To really jump into it, what does it look like to have life? So we go, is there more to this life? This is the question that the writer of Ecclesiastes is asking. Is there more to life? And how many of us ask that question? And we might not say it in that way. We may say, is this all there is? Is this the best the world has to offer? Isn't there more? Why can't my life be like, and fill in the blank? If only this could happen then. And we have all these dynamics that really question, isn't there something more to this life? When Jesus talks about life, And this is significant to watch. When Jesus talks about life as a gift from God, he talks about a life in the Greek called zoe, a full, rich, satisfying, complete life. Listen to these words from John 15. I love John 15. I go back to it often. It's a reminder, it's an encouragement. To me, it encapsulates everything Jesus was talking about just before he dies. Just before he rises again, he gives us this beautiful statement of life. He says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. Every branch in me that does not produce fruit, he removes, he prunes every branch that produces fruit, so that it will produce more fruit. You are already clean because of the word I've spoken to you. Remain in me, and me in you, just as a branch is unable to produce fruit by itself unless it remains on the vine, neither can you unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. The one who remains in me and I in him produces much fruit, because you can do nothing without me. If anyone does not remain in me, he's thrown aside as a branch and withers. They're gathered and thrown away, they're burned. If you remain in me and my words in you, ask whatever you want and it will be done. My Father is glorified by this, that you produce much fruit and prove to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, I have also loved you. Remain in my love. If you keep my command, you remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's command and remain in his. I have told you these things so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. A full, rich, satisfying, complete life. We have limited the word rich to simply defining the material gain that we have in this world. Have you ever been at a dessert bar, dessert kitchen, or maybe at grandma's table, and she serves that particular dessert, and you take a bite of it, and someone at the table goes, "Ooh, that is so rich." You ever heard that statement before? Last night, Christina had chocolate cream pie for the first time. She about lost her mind. My little 9-year-old, man, she loves everything with sugar in it, especially chocolate. And they had these single-serve chocolate cream pies. And I told her she could have one and not share with her sister. And she took a bite, and her eyes just closed. And the fork moves like so slow. Wow! The life that Jesus wants you to taste is like that. That pie we bought on clearance. 52 cents. And you would have thought we had spent $1 million of our billion that Elon gave us, right? On that pie. So rich, so full, so satisfying, so complete. That's the life Jesus talks about. That's the life that Easter brings. And that's the life that waits for you. See, when God defines the productive life, he defines it as faithful and fruitful. Now catch this. Jesus says, if you connect with me, if you live in me, if you remain in me, if you abide in me, you will be fruitful. Does Jesus define that fruit right there? No. I may never be a thousandaire, right? But my life is good. Satisfying. Remember the old Folgers? I think it was Folgers, good to the last drop, or was that Maxwell House? I drink cheap coffee. I don't know. Folgers, that's even like more expensive than the cheap that I drink, but it's good to the last drop life, right? And this is what he's talking about, like everything connected. You will be fruitful. The secret to a productive life is being connected to Jesus. He says it so clear. You didn't choose me. I chose you so that you could bear fruit, fruit that will last. When Anna Grace was getting married last summer, Corey had this amazing idea as we were planning. We had one extra expense that came up. And Corey had this amazing idea that to accommodate some of that cost, we should start day trading. And she did it in secret. Because I'm not good at that kind of stuff. She's really good with it. And she won a little bit. Day trading and gambling feel kind of similar sometimes. I'm not hating on you. And so she's going through, and she wins a little bit. And after she wins a little, she says, hey, guess what? I won a little bit. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? And she says, well, I invested in this, and I invested in that, and I invested in this, and I invested. So the moment she tells the dummy, guess what he starts to do? I start reading all of the articles about all the things you should, this investment for tomorrow, and this investment for 3 days from now, this investment, and we did okay. And then all of a sudden, poof, poof, poof. Should we withdraw? Poof. Is it too late? Should we keep in? Poof, poof. That's still enough to pay for the thing we got to pay for. Withdraw it. Jesus says, you will bear fruit that lasts. In my lifetime, my grandfather, the car that he used to drive us around in to look at Christmas lights together, had an 8-track. And he would listen to the Andrews sisters in it. And if you don't know who they are, it just proves you're not that old. And if you do know who they are, either you had a grandfather like mine or my mom had an LP, a record player. And we had all the disco tunes. Don't rock the boat, don't tip the boat over. Some of y'all want to keep dancing because you're testing your age again. Then it all changed. Cassette players, Walkmans. I wore Michael Jackson out. Tape all files apart in the Walkman. Then CD players, now MP3 players, now streamable music. Before long, you'll just think of the song and you'll know all the words and sing. You'll be perfectly auto-tuned the moment you open your mouth. You won't have to sing in the shower. It all fades away. Everything changes. How do you keep up with it? But Jesus says, I'm going to give you a life with fruit that will last. A truly productive life is a life that is lived where the fruit lasts. The impact of the life, the impact of your labor, it continues, and there's only one way for it to continue. If your life isn't defined and anchored to what's eternal, everything fades. Everything fades. My life must be connected to Jesus if I want to have a life with fruit that lasts. Because if my life is only plugged into things that can be turned off, that rust, that can be stolen or be destroyed, it won't last. I have to be connected to what's eternal. So how do I live completely fruitful? I'll give you 4 things. Here we go. You ready? Within the borders of God's freedom, within the borders of God's way is incredible freedom to flourish in this life. So here's what we talk about. Right? Every vineyard, the grapes only grow where they're supposed to grow. This is the image that Jesus is talking about here. This image of a vineyard. You have trellises that are built for the vines to grow and to flourish, and there's freedom. Like those grapes can grow and flourish and be fruitful all season long on that trellis. It's made for them, and God's way is made for you to grow, to live, to thrive, to have a life that is beautiful, productive, faithful, and fruitful. to know him and to know his love over you. His life is made that way. So one, cultivate deep roots. I was in my office a few weeks ago. A lady comes in. She's been coming to Cornerstone for a couple of months now, and she is just in tears. I sit down. We were in staff meeting. Jamarcus comes and he greeted her, and then he comes and gets me. He says, "You should take this one." I sit down with her in my office, and I said, "What's wrong?" She opens my Bible, this one, to Matthew chapter 13, and she's just crying, "How do I become good soil?" She blessed me so much that day. Do you know what this world would look like if everybody who loved Jesus fell before him in tears and said, "Make me good soil"? Because she wanted God's love and his word to take root in her life. That's what the Proverbs, or the parable says. That where God's word is scattered and the roots grow deep, that's good soil. I grew up on a farm, and so you don't just have good soil. You actually have to make soil good. You have to tend to it all the time. Like watermelons were our cash crop where I grew up in Texas, and we would start plowing fields in January. We wouldn't have a crop until the summertime. We had a big lake near us, and we would sell to all the city folk who came by for their lake parties, and I would make $6,000 to $10,000 a summer selling watermelons as a junior high kid. And that was all my pocket. $10,000 is a lot for a kid in junior high 30 years ago on watermelons. And I'm thinking, I just worked a few hours in the summer and made all this money. Man, I worked all year long. When I became an adult and realized that you clock in January 1st and you clock out December 31st and start over the next day, I was like, oh, all I thought about was the money that was stacking up. I forgot about all the work where I wasn't getting paid. We didn't get a single dime plowing the fields and making the soil right for those watermelons to grow. We got paid at the first harvest, and at the first harvest we could pick as many watermelons as our pickups could hold. That was our payment. And everything we made we could keep. And we could reinvest it back and go pick more and keep it rolling. But to get that deal, you had to work the field. And we work like dogs. Before practice, after practice, all the time. You got to cultivate deep roots. Jeremiah 17:7 says, "Blessed is the one," listen to this, "blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in God. He will be like a tree planted by water that sends out its roots by the stream." Deep roots, sprawling roots, anchored roots, not failing roots, always flourishing, nourishing the tree roots. The one whose confidence is in God, the one who's connected to God in Christ, is like a tree who is with an endless supply of all that tree needs to grow and be fruitful. Cultivate deep roots. Eliminate weeds. Eliminate weeds. We did not handpick the watermelon fields. Not like when you have a garden and you go pull out all the weeds in your garden. Our second year here, we decided, so we buy this house in Brooklyn Center. The house was a rental, and they really didn't care about the yard before. And we had this beautiful yard filled with crabgrass and clover and, everything that was not grass. It was really green, but it wasn't grass. And we decided to hire a spraying service to come and treat the lawn for a year. It wasn't a lawn yet. And we did that for 2 years. And it started to look pretty good. And then we decided maybe we could do it on our own and save a few bucks. And my borderline lawn went to being a full-blown yard again. A lawn is like manicure. Like we have one neighbor who has a lawn. It is perfect. It is only every blade of grass is the same, perfectly cut. He manicures his yard all season long. He's also retired. My yard, I'm like, look at all the pretty yellow flowers growing in it. It's gorgeous. We have a Minnesota wildflower garden yard. I don't know. Eliminate weeds. Just because it has a flower doesn't mean it's good for it. And we'll look at stuff in our lives that blooms and think that it's good. But listen, cultivated fake is not true flourishing. Do you hear that? We live in a world of cultivated fake. Cultivated fake is not true flourishing. Could you imagine, for all the things that you see on the Insta books and whatever that you watch, if they just panned out a little bit? You see that picture of the cup of coffee and somebody's Bible in their notes, and they put a scripture up? And if you just pan the camera out a little bit, there's like 4 screaming kids, a pile of laundry, a sink of dishes, and a husband going. Just pan out a little bit. Cultivated fake is not true flourishing. To truly flourish, we have to eliminate weeds. We talk about this like we got to cooperate with God's pruning. Cultivating weeds means tilling the soil. Cooperating with pruning is different. Pruning, there is a season for pruning. And they tell you, like if you watch this, there's websites you can go to. University of Minnesota has a beautiful one for our particular region. This is when you cut back this tree and this plant and that plant. And it gives you particular times. Even among late spring snows, this is when you do it. This is how you do it. And the reason you prune, well, I prune because branches get in the way of my lawn mowing. But you're supposed to prune so that more sun can shine on that plant where fruit can be produced. In a vineyard and a fruit garden or a vegetable garden, you actually trim things back so that more sun can hit the plant and more fruit will grow and ripen. That's what pruning's for. And here's the thing. When it comes to God pruning, he talks about pruning here in John 15. When it talks about pruning, we cannot confuse pruning with punishment. Sometimes God is doing things in our lives, and we're like, God, I just wish you'd leave me alone. I haven't done anything wrong. Well, debatable. Sometimes the things that prick and hurt, it's not punishment. It's shaping. It's pruning so that more of God can shine on more of you. And in that space, you actually become more fruitful. So don't confuse pruning with punishment. And then the last one, remember the order. The order is important. Jesus says it so clearly. He is the vine. We are the branches. The vine is what's connected to the roots, is what feeds the entire system of branches. The vine is the thing that sustains the entire plant. You can't have grapes without the vine. The branches won't grow without the vine. Nutrients can't move from the roots without the vine. The vine is central to everything. Remember the order. Jesus says it. Remember, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me, and me and you will bear much fruit. And here's the thing. I don't know where you are this Easter Sunday. I don't know what it looks like for you. But in this dynamic, in this space, Jesus has lived, he has died, he has risen again, he has ascended to heaven. He will return one day. And everything he has done from the Father's will, the Son has unfolded for your benefit. That you could know love, that you could know grace, that you could know forgiveness, that you could be connected to the one who loves you most, that you could find definition by the one who made life, that you, in connection with Christ, would live a life that is fruitful and bears fruit that lasts. It is a good life. I happen to think it is the greatest life we will ever know. I have tasted the tables of the other side. I can't wait to sit at the feast one day. But right now, he still invites us to taste and to see how good he is. And he invites us to live forever connected to him because he loves you. I'm going to pray. Our worship team is going to prepare. And as we pray, I just want you to think for a moment. Have I said yes to being connected to Jesus? You saying yes to Jesus, that's between you and God. I invite you to share that with me because I want to see you grow. I want to see you flourish. I want to see you live into this good life that Jesus has promised, and he invites us to do that together. That's the whole reason we ask you to text it in. If you're saying yes to Jesus today, as we want to come alongside you, support you, and encourage you. Wherever you are in this space, the invitation is yours. God has extended it for a long time. Will you say yes to being connected to him?